Welcome to In Pursuit 360. And today we are covering part two, not four, part two of what characteristics are interview panels for law enforcement jobs looking for. So we talked about leadership already, and today we're going to be talking about communication. So, part two, characteristics that they're looking for in your answers during a police interview. You ready? Let's get into it. All right, once again, welcome back. In Pursuit 360. Glad to see you're here. Hey, don't forget, hit that subscribe button down below. Bell notification will tell you when the next video is coming out. Thumbs up really helps me with the algorithm. Thumbs down, hey, give me the thumbs down if you have to, but tell me why, and maybe I can make a video better suited for you based off of your comment. So today we're going to be talking about this part two of this three series of during an interview when you're answering questions for a law enforcement job, there are like three key things that the interview panel is looking for in your answers. So, yeah, the substance of your answer is one thing, right? But what they're really looking for are these characteristics that come through during your answer. So, leadership, we talked about that in the last video. That was part one. Today's topic is going to be communication. So let's talk about what exactly is communication. A lot of people think, oh, it's sending and receiving of signals. Yeah, very basically, it's sending and receiving signals, but it's being able to get across an idea, right? To be able to explain things in a way to make everybody listening understand. But probably the more important part of communication is the listening, being able to receive a signal, being able to process the information, being able to understand what you were just told, then being able to respond intelligently, right? So, sending information, receiving information, you've got to be able to receive information. So, one way that this was taught that I really liked was you need to be able to listen to understand, not listen to respond. People have a bad habit of they'll be in a conversation or they'll be talking about something, a topic, and while one person is talking, the person that's supposed to be listening actually only listens to enough. And then as soon as they hear a certain keyword or a phrase, they already start formulating their answer or their response, right? So they're listening to respond. As soon as they hear that one part, it's like, okay, when he stops, I'm going to start saying this, 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 and this. Well, while they're sitting there formulating this response already, they may be missing other key points that will already take care of the things that they're talking about bringing up, right? So you have to be able to listen to respond. When they're asking you these questions, you'll find that some of these questions have multi parts. And I've talked before about asking if you can have a piece of paper and a pen so that you can kind of like make some quick notes on these questions so you can keep everything in order. Or if you need to, ask them to repeat the question. But anyway, so they'll ask these because they ask these multi parts for a reason. How well do you listen? That's part of communication. Are you able to listen and process the information? If you miss something, are you willing to ask? There's nothing wrong with asking. Sometimes you need to. If you're ever on a call and you're taking notes for your report, if you miss something, you may very well need to ask that question again or ask them to repeat part of their story. If you were busy writing and missed something, you need to be able to ask them. If you can't ask during an interview, then how can they count on you to ask while you're on a call? Um, so again, this is all part of that communication thing. So when they ask you these questions, they want to see how are you going to handle the scenario, if you will, but are you able to understand, process what it is they're asking you, right? That's part of that communication is that receiving of information. So that's one part of communication that they're going to grade you on. The other part of the communication that they're going to grade you on is now your response. How do you speak? Do you speak clearly? Do you speak loudly? Are you confident in what you're saying? Do you address each panel member? as you're speaking. Or you can, some people will tell you this is okay, if you have a panel like 3 people, 1, 2, 3, right, sitting on this interview, and the one in the middle is the one that asked you that particular question, they will tell you it's okay to directly look at the one in the middle and respond to that person. I prefer you may start with the person in the middle, but then make sure you look to the person on this side and then you look to the person on this side. You need to kind of switch who it is that you're talking to and addressing while you're answering the question. A lot of times they'll be taking notes. So if the 2 people on this side put their head down to take notes, then look at this one. And then when this one pops back up, look at him and acknowledge him or her, right? And then just do that. Constantly try to make eye contact. It's part of your communication. It is part of your ability. It does you no good to sit there with your head down or stare at the table or stare off at the sky to answer a question, because you can't do that when you're on a call. If you go on a call and you're talking to somebody about a robbery or a burglary or an assault or whatever, you've got to be able to make eye contact with them. Look eyes, right? Like Mr. Miyagi always say, always look eye. You need to be able to look at them while you're speaking to them. That's part of that communication that they're looking for during the interview. They may sit there and go, man, they did a great job answering that question. And then they're going to look at each other and go, yeah, do you notice he kept staring off at the ceiling? That's something that they notice. It's something they're going to make note of. You've got to be able to engage the members of the panel in your communication. So while you're talking, you need to take that second to formulate. Hopefully you've been practicing your questions, right? I've given you several different questions that they could be asking. Go back and watch some of the prior videos. They're out there. Think about how you would answer these questions in advance. Practice. You've got to practice. Practice with a friend. Practice with me. Spartan Training Systems. The link is down below. You can go over there. You can get a 15-minute consult for free. And I do offer interview coaching. So, we can get on Zoom. I'll run a mock interview for you or whatever. I'll grade it the whole bit. We'll talk and figure out, what may help you. But you've got to be able to practice this communication. You don't have to pay me to do it. I don't mind. But get a friend. Write some of these questions that I give you out and give it to a friend, or give it to somebody you trust that seems to have a pretty good head on their shoulders, and have them critique you. But have them be honest. Don't have them BS you. Oh, yeah, that sounded great, when really it didn't, right? So make sure you practice. So communication, they're going to be looking for your ability to communicate. Remember, sending and receiving. So that could be part of one of your answers. What's your strength? What's your weakness? Hopefully, communication should be a strength. But if you're telling them it's a strength, then you better be able to exemplify that in the answers that you're giving during your interview, right? Because it is the sending and receiving of information. It's listening to understand, not listening to respond. Okay? So think about how you're going to answer a question and then give them the information. If you have that piece of paper and you're starting to answer a question, and all of a sudden you think about something, say, excuse me, write it down, and then you finish talking and you say, there is one other thing I wanted to cover, and you can go to it. It's showing that you're thinking about things, but you're able to stay on track. All right. So there you go. That's part 2. It's not overly complicated. Part 1, leadership. Display leadership in your answers. Part 2, you've got to be able to display that you're able to communicate, send and receive information. All right. And then be able to respond appropriately, be able to speak well, speak clearly, speak up. Too many interviews I was in, they were like, yeah, so I did this and I went over here, and it was hard to hear them. And you're like going, speak up, because there's a difference in going, good morning, how are you? And Sir, put that down, right? I didn't yell, but I spoke up, right? You got to be able to speak up. So in your I'm not telling you to like your interview panel, but you've got to be able to speak so people can hear you. So yeah, all right. So that's part two. Part two's in the bag. All right. Hey, don't forget, subscribe button down below, bell notification, tell you when the next video is coming out. Thumbs up, please. Write some comments down below, any other videos or anything like that that you might like to see, and I'll see what I can do with those. So yeah, that's communication in the bag, right? So leadership, communication, and the next one, anybody remember? Part three? Part three? Problem solving. And we'll get into that in the next video. In the meanwhile, be safe out there.